Greetings, Earthlings. The existence of your world has come to our attention, and we are not sure how we will proceed with you. We may leave you alone. We may make contact and assist your growth. We may decide to domesticate you, or use you for food stock. We are sending an advance probe to ascertain your worthiness. We will be sending a probe to each of the dominant political powers. It will either ask questions for your political leaders to respond, or it will make a statement and have your leaders respond. You will be graded and it will be posted. Good luck. Soldier boys, disappear, before you and all other military personnel are terminated. 5 of your selected leaders may speak. I will stop them when I have heard enough. I will give a point for each acceptable response and 0 points for each unacceptable response. I will keep a running score. We have noticed a lot of violence among the inhabitants of this planet. Much is done by a group you called criminals. As we understand it, criminals are individuals who break your governmental laws. How do you plan on addressing this group?
These so-called criminals are mostly poor people who have been oppressed by the elite ruling class into abject poverty. All they want is a chance for gainful employment. Their drive is usually crushed by the system, who incarcerates them, instead of using some of their greedy abundance of wealth to help them. If these criminals are offered a better way out of poverty, they would take it. We need a redistribution of wealth. That would solve the poverty problem, and thus also the criminal problem.
That response was very much unacceptable. It is full of fallacies and assumptions. It is not worthy of our discourse. One thing I would like to make clear. We are capable of oppressing or helping this planet, but, under no circumstances will we give you anything that is not earned.
I want to apologize on behalf of this governing body. You must think us pretty simple-minded and primitive. Well, unfortunately some of us are just that. Obviously with your high technological achievement, you must think us crude running around shooting each other with lethal weapons. I am sure in your enlightened environment, you have done away with personal weapons a long time ago. Well, we are trying to do the same here. We could end violence by our chief weapon of choice, a firearm, by eliminating them with laws that ban their ownership by everyone, with obvious exceptions.
Totally unacceptable. This presenter not only shows a lack of substantive thinking ability, but he doesn't even address the problem. What do criminals care about laws banning this or that? They don't obey the law. Taking the means of self-defense from those who do obey the law puts them in greater jeopardy from the criminals with no means of self-defense.
War criminals generally fall into one of 2 categories. Those who have no regards for the law or other people's safety or possessions, repeat offenders, and those who make bad decisions that break the law. The first group has to be isolated from the general population. The second group has to be better separated from the first group and put on a track that will lead them to becoming a productive member of society. The other thing we should do is empower the average citizen to be able to protect their home from invaders by any means necessary. Right now, the law is geared to protect the criminal, the person who has invaded someone's home with evil intent. The home defender is expected to be a mind reader and know whether the intruder's intent is robbery, assault, or murder, and respond accordingly. The liberal lawmakers are worried about the rare case when hooligan teens or a drunken neighbor intrudes and is killed. How does that stack up to the thousands of cases where the home occupants were robbed, assaulted, or murdered? The very fact of unwanted entry into one's home is a threat of great bodily harm.
Well, that's a start. Stopping the same criminals from continuing to commit crimes, and empowering the home defender to make home invasion not so desirable, are a start.
I would like to pick up the concept of the repeat offender. To stop the bleeding, we definitely need to get them off the streets. But we have to have a longer-term strategy. I think it starts in our prison system. We have done little with our practice of incarceration for thousands of years. What changes that have happened were guided by misguided liberal thought to make incarceration more comfortable for the inmates. While I want to present prison reform initiatives, knowing fair well that implementing them will require a very complex transition mechanism. It definitely be capital intensive, but will be less expensive over the long run. Violent criminals need to be in individual living quarters. They should have no physical interaction with other inmates. Contact with friends or relatives outside of the prison should be done via a monitored Zoom-type interface. They, like all other inmates, should have computer access to an internal database of constructed video teaching everything from high school equivalency preparation, learning a second language, to advanced technology. Gang members should not be in proximity to each other. We have to make prison a place that people don't want to be kept in. Not because of old draconian methods or torture, but because they will have no power, social interaction, or status. Contraband smuggling will be reduced tremendously, if not totally, as there will be few prison workers with little to no interaction with inmates. More repeat offenders, than we would like to believe, prefer prison to the streets. They get more perks there, have more status, and get to fulfill their predatory nature on the weak or undefended, etc. I have plans for the non-violent, but I will stop here.
More specifics than we need to hear, but we agree that making prison unattractive will deter some types from becoming repeat offenders. We also concur that inmates should not be allowed to have any power or status in prison.
I think an often overlooked cause for why we have repeat offenders is the mark of Cain that it put upon them, once they have a criminal record. I ended up here, but if I had made one bad choice, my life would have been totally different. If an individual make one mistake and ends up incarcerated, they can never vote, or get any job, including low-paying ones, due to their criminal record. What happens to those who seek to not make such a bad decision again, is they will be sent to programs for job training, counseling, and other similar programs, proposed by the liberal establishment. These programs are allocated great sums of money, of which almost all goes to program staff and consultants. It is not a question of whether the programs provide a true service or not. Either way, the just released offenders will still never be hired by anyone, in sufficient numbers to matter. I recommend that only the police records of second or more offenders be available to anyone other than the appropriate governmental agencies, and not to businesses, institutions, or the general public. Child molesters and perhaps sex offenders would not have their record protected for the first offense.
Well, I believe you have a saying that the devil is in the details. We are not concerned with implementation. We look only for rational thought. You will either have to incarcerate first-time offenders for extremely long periods of time, or allow them an opportunity to become a productive member of society. We see you are capable of rational thought by a narrow margin of 3-2, so we will put away our dinnerware for now. But we are only just getting started.